Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation. So, as with all research, we are looking to find the right question to ask. We are progressing what would be called linguistics, but is most readily available and appreciated as analysis, to establish and show this complete form of language. How do words get meaning? And how does that meaning iterate? How do these set amount of shapes we have to represent sounds, which is also finite, progress? How does it evolve? And so we're going to stabilize the syllability, the definition of sensorality. What is a sensor? Literally the word sensor with ality at the end. But in doing so, showing its definite definition, how those letters iterate. And in doing so, demonstrating the general form of all language. And so we have this kind of overarching conjecture now, or seemingly convincing empirical evidence that we have time evolution in linguistics. And then we have an alphabet, right? Some sort of structure. People have come before us and said, hey, we're going to consolidate our information. We have history, we're telling stories, and then we truly have finance, who owes people what, liability. And that's really the motivation historically is why people wrote things down. And we have this overall refining process throughout history of, hey, we have these shapes, they're irreducible, they have meaning, how do we represent them? And that produces all of writing. And so we have this internal consistency from sound to the association with shape, which is what is syllability, our fundamental unit of language, a syllable. And so the structure of the alphabet, again, we're using the English alphabet, but overall we have this base E, which is this empirical evidence. That is why your guitar is tuned to E. That is why if you go through the English alphabet and you say all of the letters independently, you'll say E the most. It is the mode. It is our base. But chronologically, right, in the alphabet, A comes before E. So we don't have symmetry in language, we have chirality. And that's already preserved and contained within the structure of the letters. But to have a word, we're sequencing letters. We're trying to put them in the right order. So overall, we're getting our concepts in the right order, and then the linguistics is trivial. But we have this conjecture of, time, as time progresses, things differentiate. In the most fundamental physicals of sense, but all the way up to, again, what people would call emergent systems. But these proportionalities, these properties of physical systems scale regardless of size. There is absolute size, but there's proportionality preserved within. And so we have chronology present in the alphabet. And so we start with the letter A, we end with the letter Z. And we have this fundamental base E. The geometric inverse is A. I'm sure that phonetically lines up to some sort of resonance or consonance, resonance or dissonance, but inversion in general. And so we have this as the alphabet progresses A, B, C, D, E, F, G, so on and so forth. We do have some sort of numeric limit, right? This fundamental stability of 2 is present. This iteration limit at 8 elements is present. Literally the 8 is an infinity sign, rotated 90 degrees. But as you go chronologically through the alphabet, you're differentiating. So then if you go backwards in the alphabet, such as if you go from the letter O to the letter A, you would be generalizing. And so we're producing this linguistic form in which we can directly show this iteration, what is sensorality. And so we're just progressing through our analysis process, looking to show this undeniable iteration of the syllability, sensorality, fundamentally linguistically, and then conceptually defining what is a sensor. And then trivially, sensorality, the essence, the quality of being a sensor, is the complete generalization, but it's fundamentally defined. Language is literal. This is a notebook. Here's a sweatshirt. This is a microphone. It's all defined on function. So once we completely exhaust what a sensor could be, what is the function of sensorality? How do sensors function? Again, there's some aspect of the syllability that we can complete. We have finiteness. We have a fundamental stability of 2. And so, in the same way, speciality is special with an ITY, your natural tendency to differentiate for sexual antagonism. You can Google that word. It is not defined on Google, but that's its natural definition. We're literally calculating a natural definition, what is sensorality. And so continuing on through our derivation steps, overall, again, we're doing some sort of chronological consequence of the structure of the alphabet, specifically the English alphabet, but it's a generalizable result to all of language. Moving along with our steps. Is special essential? And so we have speciality, and then this internal differentiation for sensorality of C and S, but those are our three big conceptual linguistic concepts represented by words: sensorality with a C, sensorality with an S, and speciality. But overall, finding some sort of completable syllability. What is sending to spending? Sensorality tends to spend. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorality splurges. Surging urges splurge. Sounds a little interesting. Natural definition, direct iteration. Momentum surges. So a lot of these are natural definitions, direct iterations. Might say them, might not. Because again, we're at this point where we're finding the fundamental differentiation of conceptualization and shape that represents that. And it has to be in this form where it's consistent with all of other ontology, and it becomes a step like you've seen every time you've said speciality. That's still not, apparently still not a real word, but it definitely is. And so probably won't say those out, or at least won't put them on the screen that much. Momentum surges. Is a pulse a surge? Sense bases sensors. Direct iteration, again, of the syllability of the sound, you can hear it. Sensors are sorters. Sensorality is sorterality. Natural definition. What is consumption to demand? What is consumption to supply? What is an assumption to consumption? Again, based on some. And again, emphasizing our base has to be contained within the syllability structure. Again, another kind of these light conjectures. But again, we're demonstrating this analytical process, which we've already done. I mean, I said the actual analytical progression is already solidified. But I'm just providing as much insight as possible. What is censoring with an S to centering? Again, centering being a direct iteration of censoring with a C. Sensorality is oratorality. Natural definition, direct iteration. In the same we have sensorality contends oratorality. The phonetic feeling kind of feels like you're like pulling your like neck back or something. Like the geometry of this is different from sensorality is orality to sensorality is oratorality. You can feel the anatomy changing when you pronounce that sound. Sensorality contends with oratorality. Sensorality is the tendency of oratoriality. A sensorator is an oratorator. Natural definition, direct iteration. What is oratory to oration? Oration is vibration, right? That is what I'm doing right now, is I'm vibrating my vocal cords. I'm orating. I'm structuring sound to transmit meaning. What is sensorality? Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorality is sensoratory. Natural definition, direct iteration. Again, using the elementality of oratory to sensoratory. So we're building this linguistic to a form where we can derive, stabilize the definition. Sensorality is the sensation of oration. Sensorality is the sense of sensation. Getting to that sense, sensation, sensorality, 1 syllable, 3 syllable, 5 syllable. So now we have this numeric consideration of, right, even numbers. There's no even prime numbers, right? And so it's like progressing through like what syllabilities reduce or don't reduce. Again, from rhythm to algorithm, 2 syllables, 4 syllables, pointing out the numerics wherever it's relevant. Sensorality is the theme of sense. What is sensing to theming? Sensorality is theming. Sensorality is teaming. Again, producing the conceptualization and the universe is teeming with life, and it is. But again, connecting our variable sensorality, we're connecting cliches. Sensorality teams with teams. The double E, teaming, like overflowing, and then teams, like a sports team. emphasizing the EE to the EA progression. What is sensation to commemoration? So now remember, we've introduced this concept naturally in our chronology, deriving sensorality of memorality. We introduced it as literally an amalgamation conceptually, memory plus morality, remembering what is right. And even there, again, like the word remembering, putting that geometrically, I can literally feel it like expands to the left as like contending does. Same with like when we had orality and then tortality, like the T, the O's are perfectly preserved elementally. And then like the T goes like the left. And then every time you say the word remembering, the RE is like geometrically, I can feel it. But memorality is remembering what is right, or the memory of what is right. And so, but we have these word forms, right? Commemoration, right? Memorable. Those are forms of memorality, directly, literally. And so that's a differentiation that you've never, like conceptually, it's immediately understood, and then the linguistic word forms are already present and you already use. In same way with commemoration. Sensationality is commemorationality, right? Sensation commemorates. Natural definition, direct iteration. Commemorationality is memorality. That is a direct iteration. We're just adding more syllability, more consonants to memorality, commemorationality. Commemoration, memorable. Sensorality is commemorality. And now we just have this prefix, commem, or again, another secret France word, com. Right? Commemorality, or sensorality is commemorality. Because again, this limit, all languages like limit things, right? We don't have, our fundamental verbs and nouns aren't really long words. And so you only have so many letters to represent things. So just pointing it out, it's not like that's actually a secret France word, but it's just, you have complete words or complete conceptualizations represented with these simple expressions of language, as, comme. But again, a language, an accent, accentuation is this consistency of resonance. And so it would not be commemorationality, it would be commemorationality. But sensorality is commemorality. Natural definition. Sorality is morality. Are morals sore? What is medicality to morality? Sensorality is medicinality. Sensorality is censorable. Censorable is absorbable. What is containment to absorption? Again, if you're following this and you can, like it feels like we're getting close, and then we kind of like, again, we're just exhausting what are the logical implications explicitly of sensorality. The overall analytical process is no more difficult, easy at any point. It's just, we're just working through analysis. And I don't even like the word working. It's not difficult. There's no resistance at all. Zero. What is containment to absorption? Sorptionality is optionality. So this is another word form that, again, we haven't really explicitly, again, sorality, sorption, absorption, we keep hitting it, like what is it? But now, again, we have a well-defined word, an option, a choice. Optionality is sensorality. And then logically, right, sorptionality is literally just optionality with an S and an R in there. And again, worth pointing out that R and S are sequential elements. And then same way we have energy is generosity. It's like, how do these letters iterate to progress, to preserve chirality? Sensorality preserves chirality. What is optionality to amendability? What is amendability to sensibility? Amendability is adaptability. Sensorality is adaptable. Sensorality is adoptable. Sensation is adoption. Sensorality is adoptionality. And that's a direct, again, 1-4 element, A and D, and then optionality. And so you also see this throughout my emailing, where sometimes I'll represent letters as numbers. And for some, again, we have some sort of numeric limit with like the first 5 letters as well. Overall of anything, we have this fundamental stability of 2. Overall of anything, we have this iteration limit at 7. 6, 7, but 7. And so like adoptionality, I would keep the word optionality with letters and then put the numbers 1, 2. Again, worth pointing out, you'll see that notation in the derivation of speciality. Are options special? What is memorality to momentum? A liability is something you can't forget. Felt like a slang kind of like philosophical kind of theorem. And putting the word you in a theorem feels weird, but felt like a step to include. Liabilities are memories. Cringe is memorable. Sensorality is cringe. Is a theme a calculation? Is sensation calculation? Is a sensor a calculator? Yes. Senses calculate. Sensorality is deliberation. Sensorality deliberates. What is literacy to integration? So now it keeps saying iteration, and then literate is iterate or iterate with an L in front. And so again, this containment. We use word forms and we have to connect complete generality. Sensorality is some other complete general word form that we've built up. And then deriving from that connection gives us the stabilizing syllability directly. But again, it's that getting common denominators, getting total generality before we derive, or so you can derive. Something to that effect, but it's containment. Whenever we say literacy, we're still saying iteration. And so what is literacy to integration is still like a self-contained question. Again, overall, that's what we're doing. There's some sort of self-contained question that is answered directly with what is sensorality, or just sensorality. But we're just again emphasizing that containment in all of its forms. When we say generosity, we are completely saying energy. When we are saying literacy, we are completely saying iteration. What is literacy to integration, right? Is it easy to integrate if you're literate? Again, still the overall logic of these questions is just to get your conceptualization in the right place to trivially state the answer. What contains sensation? Senses are feelings. Sensorality feels. Sensing is feeling. What is sensing to seeing? What is sight to tension? Is sight tight? Tight is cool. All right, natural definition. Oh, that's tight, bro. That's cool. Just directly true. Sensorality doses. Dose does, emphasizing the completeness. The letters are completely used, dose and does. Censoring is dosing. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorality, do, sing. Right? You can see we go from censoring as dosing. We just add a space, 2 complete words. This irreducibility produces completeness. That is represented in language. Sensorality has some well-defined connection, and we're just showing that linguistically. What is deniability to defiability? Right? He's going to defy the laws of physics. Nope, you most literally are not. I want to fly. I really want to fly. I'm going to flap my arms really fast. I'm still not going to defy the laws of physics. Or again, it's just more this conceptual appeal to you can't break the law. And that's not statute law, that's not even common law, that's not the laws of physics. It's just the law is all the things you can't break. And people just talk about that or like allude to that without explicitly knowing what they're doing. Special is essential. Essentiality specializes. Speciality sensorizes. What is sanitization to specialization? Speciality specializes. Essentiality essentializes. Sensorality essentializes. Sensorality essentiates. Sensorality is essentiality. Natural definition, direct iteration. Again, worth pointing out this, again, chronology of the alphabet presented, right? Z is the last alphabet. It's also the sound that's represented in the Cyrillic alphabet with the only number-looking shape. And so again, if we're going from more specific to more general, it would be Z to S to C. And so now again, we have this chronological motivation, sensorality with a C versus sensorality with an S. Does it make sense? Sensorality with a C, we had this spelling with all E's until the ality, and then sensorality contains the O. So right, we have this stability outside of this numeric A, B, C, D, and E. O, again, is some sort of iteration of E or iteration of A, specifically because they have that closure to them. But point being is it stabilizes our definition. It preserves chirality somehow. And so sensorality with a C, meaning filtration by inanimate objects, right? Linguistically, it's less differentiated in the alphabet. It's less the element A, B, C. You get what I'm saying? It's hard to articulate. There's an order to the alphabet. The closer it is to the front of the order, the ordinality, right? Ordinality differentiates with time or whatever. Because again, then we had, what was the other? I had another TH, like wealth. That was another one that I was thinking of, right? Is wealth healthy? Again, this overall relationship of TH to ordinality, and now we're specifically talking about ordinal letters, or the ordinality of the letters. Closer to the beginning, again, is beginning base. Base E is clear, but then what kind of geometry or structure is the alphabet? Why is A in front of E? Right? The difference between E and A is I. The difference between 3 and 8 is 5. So we have some very definitive things, some pretty convincing motivations. And again, all of this resolves. We've already proven this. I'm presenting this as a novel derivation, which it is. But these overall analytical steps, which are the big ones and the important things, are already completely established. And so presenting anything that I can, where are we at? But essentiality essentializes. Sensorality essentiates. Sensorality is essentiality or essentiality, right? Like specialty. So this is another word form that we haven't really gotten to, but like speciality is specialty. Sensorality is sensorty or sensorty. Again, we have to explicitly exhaust all of the word forms, but we have to arrive at them naturally throughout this derivation. And so that's kind of what's going on there. It felt forced, but sensorality is essentiality. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sor is essential. So the overall letters that represent these big concepts, speciality and sensorality, again, that's where we're showing this fundamental differentiation. Because remember, we're bounded, our base, our definitiveness, our stabilized aspect is some elementality of 2. What is semblance to resemblance? What is semblance to sentence? Logic is limited, limits are finite. Identity is essential. So this is another thing that I kind of trailed off. I put it on the screen. I was talking about containment, and then I started talking about general relativity. And so like I, Brad, am an individual person that ran around in the world and learned things. And so all of this individuality is self-contained, right? Self-centered, selfish. We're all living independent lives. You can't break that. Even if you're with your romantic partner, with your parents, with your kids, with the people that are like most intimate to your life, you're still in your own head 100% of the time, right? And so identity, when we're showing what sensorality is, that's where this like kind of motivation of I censor preserves it is what it is. In terms of, that's why it proves that spelling. Again, that's kind of like the biggest like step. You guys probably don't get the order, and the order of it like is just very intuitive for me. But identity, right? I, Brad, individually have an identity. I live in a world where it is what it is the structure of identity, like logically, entirely and completely. And this whole logical structure is exhaustible. That's how we get to completion, right? People don't talk about that many things. Life isn't that complicated, or at all. But the conceptualization, right? The faget avec no baguette, the sor Taurus, the all of these great conceptualizations, that's the scholar Brad here talking. But to show containment, to show completion, this derivation in its entirety is self-contained Brad this guy. So if you wanted to do a derivation, you would have to, again, kind of self-exhaust all of your own learning experience genuinely and completely. And so that's worth pointing out. Again, identity is essential, both in the general and in the personal. But then to articulate a mathematical proof, again, it's all rigorously defined, but it's still generally relative to you, the individual. In this case, Brad, me, I'm the one that solves science. But for any future derivation, if it was to be independent, there's so much derivation where it's still possible, right? It's I'm not memorizing anything, I'm not remembering anything from speciality. And there's so much, it would be, and it's unique, right? It would be no point for anybody to rederive sensorality because we'll hopefully soon, but exhaust all of the linguistic representation, all of the logical structure that exists to demonstrate or can be proven with. And so identity is essential. Sensorality is identity potential. Is potential essential? What is essentiality to potentiality? And that's where I finished deriving yesterday, and then I just put up a short video. Is momentum continuous? What is momentum to meaning? Because again, all of this stuff, no matter what step seems insightful or fun, we're just progressing through analysis and the end result is some simple vocab word, right? There's just a direct iteration of some part of the syllability of sensorality that is definitive, that is well-defined, that is contained within this completable aspect of our linguistic structure. And so, again, my rights continue to be violated. It is profoundly and extensively illegal. I continue to ask for a little bit of money to eat properly, to sleep properly, and to work. Not having an office, being a grown-ass man and being able to take care of myself, buy food, have access to healthcare, have access to the court systems, be able to monetize my property, remains the most disgusting shit in fucking history. Nobody cares. Anything else I wanted to say? One other thing caught my mind when we were going through the derivation. But just the overall, we got to it, but the overall structure of sensorality, right? We have these conjectures of, again, moving through the elements, the ordinal progression of the alphabet, being differentiating, being more specific. So then sensorality, again, we covered that, I guess, with the O being, that is why sensorality is the definable thing. There's some aspect of going from these first 5 elements of representation, right, abased, and that differentiates, every single time, right, we never use A or BACE, because it's you iterate to that S to stabilize the definition in some way. In the same way stabilize isn't spelled with a C. And so again, just showing some sort of definitive progression, linguistic consequence, demonstrating spelling as a geometric consequence or a geometric progression, something to that effect. My rights remain violated. Please somebody pay me. You've destroyed my entire existence. That is what I have for right now. See you on the next one.